The Forgotten Feast, the Northern Lights Gala, had been exhausting, even for a man who thrived on conquering rooms. Dominic Thorne loosened his bow tie as his limousine glided through the gates of his estate, the tension headache from smiling at investors for 4 hours finally easing. At 45, with salt and pepper hair and eyes the color of winter steel, Dominic had built Thorne Industries into a technological empire that had made him the 12th richest person in America and possibly its loneliest. The car stopped in the garage beneath his Seattle mansion. Dominic nodded curtly at Percy Winters, his driver of 8 years, and headed toward the private elevator. Something made him pause, a faint rustling from the far corner of the garage. Percy hadn't exited the car. Instead, after assuming Dominic had gone upstairs, he had slipped to a small maintenance alcove where a folding chair leaned against the wall. Dominic watched as the dignified older man unwrapped a napkin containing what appeared to be leftovers from the gala, crusty bread ends and remnants of salmon canapes. "Is there a problem with the staff kitchen?" "Winters?" Dominic's voice echoed against concrete. Percy jumped, nearly dropping his makeshift dinner. "Mr. Thorne." "My apologies, sir. I was just eating scraps." Dominic approached, noting the exhaustion etched into his chauffeur's face. Percy was in his 60s with weathered hands and patient eyes. He'd never missed a day, never complained, never been anything but perfectly professional. "The kitchen closes at 9, sir. I didn't want to trouble anyone." Dominic checked his watch. "Nearly midnight. You've been waiting for me all this time?" "It's my job, Mr. Thorne." Something uncomfortable twisted in Dominic's chest. "When did you last eat a proper meal?" Percy hesitated. "I had coffee this morning." There wasn't time for more. "My daughter needed help with her father. My wife's passed, and he's not well." "Your daughter?" In 8 years, Dominic had never inquired about Percy's life. "Emilia. She's studying astrophysics at the university. Brilliant girl." Pride momentarily overcame Percy's embarrassment. "Works part-time at the planetarium while caring for my father." "She wanted to quit school to work full-time, but I wouldn't hear of it." Dominic's phone buzzed, his COO with acquisition numbers that couldn't wait. He silenced it. "Follow me, Winters." Percy reluctantly trailed Dominic to the elevator, which ascended to the mansion's main floor. The kitchen gleamed with untouched appliances and marble countertops. Dominic rarely ate at home. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing to the island. Percy perched uncomfortably on a stool, while Dominic, to both their surprise, opened the refrigerator. He wasn't entirely helpless, just accustomed to others handling such tasks. Soon, 2 plates held impromptu sandwiches with cold roast beef, cheese and mustard. "Eat," Dominic said, sliding one plate across the counter before taking his own seat. They ate in silence until Dominic asked, "How old is your father?" 87. Former physics professor. Emilia got her brains from him. Dominic nodded. "And her astronomical pursuits?" Percy smiled faintly. "She was 5 when he first showed her Saturn through his telescope. Said she'd visit the stars someday." Another silence fell as Dominic processed this glimpse into a life so different from his own. He'd built his fortune on satellite technology without ever looking through a telescope himself. "Sir," Percy said finally, "about tonight, starting tomorrow, you'll use the staff dining room regardless of hour. I'll inform the kitchen." "That's very kind, but—" "And I'd like to meet your daughter." Percy blinked. "Emilia? Why?" Dominic wasn't entirely sure himself. Perhaps it was the hunger in Percy's eyes, not for food, but for his daughter's future. Perhaps it was the strange emptiness of his own vast kitchen. Or perhaps, after years of acquisitions and mergers, Dominic Thorne was finally curious about something he couldn't buy. "Thorne Industries has a new satellite project. We need fresh perspectives." He stood, conversation finished. "Bring her to the office. Monday, 9 a.m. As Percy thanked him, Dominic felt an unfamiliar sensation, the lightness of having done something without calculation, without strategic advantage. It unsettled him. Yet as he watched Percy leave with straighter shoulders, he wondered if perhaps there were equations of human connection he had yet to solve. Calculations of kindness, Emilia Winters clutched her worn messenger bag as she stepped into the gleaming atrium of Thorne Industries headquarters. At 26, She possessed a quiet intensity that matched her appearance. Dark curls pulled back from an angular face, brown eyes that missed nothing, and hands that bore the calluses of someone who built her own telescope components. Her charcoal blazer was threadbare at the elbows but impeccably pressed. "This is ridiculous," she whispered to her father. "I'm not qualified for whatever position he's invented." Percy straightened his chauffeur's cap. "Mr. Thorne specifically requested you, Emmy." "Because he felt sorry for you eating leftovers," she replied. "I don't need charity from a tech billionaire with a guilty conscience." Before Percy could respond, Vanessa Zhao, Thorne's executive assistant, approached them. "Ms. Winters?" "Mr. Thorne is expecting you. This way, please." Amelia squeezed her father's hand before following Vanessa through a labyrinth of glass and steel to Dominic's office, a minimalist space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle. Dominic stood with his back to the door, studying a holographic model of what appeared to be a satellite array. He turned, his expression unreadable. "Ms. Winters, thank you for coming." His voice was cooler than it had been in the kitchen. This was Dominic Thorne, the CEO, not the man who made midnight sandwiches. "I'm here because my father insisted," Amelia replied honestly. "But I don't understand why you requested me." A flicker of respect crossed Dominic's face at her directness. "Your academic record is impressive. Double major in astrophysics and engineering. Published papers on orbital mechanics at 22? Amelia blinked. "You researched me?" "I research everything, Ms. Winters." He gestured to the hologram. "This is Project Aurora, a new satellite network designed to provide global internet access. The technical aspects are confidential, but we're facing challenges with the orbital configurations." "And you think I can help with that?" "I think you might see something my team has missed." Fresh perspectives often reveal blind spots. Amelia approached the hologram cautiously. Despite her skepticism, the problem intrigued her. She studied the orbital patterns, immediately noting the interference patterns at higher latitudes. "Your primary satellites are creating shadow zones over the polar regions," she said, pointing. "If you adjusted the tertiary layer by 8 degrees and added relay capabilities to these 4 units, you'd achieve nearly complete coverage." Dominic watched her intently. "The calculations would be complex." "Not particularly. I could model it for you in about 3 hours." Amelia paused. "Assuming you actually want my input and this isn't just an elaborate way to help the chauffeur's daughter." Instead of taking offense, Dominic smiled slightly. "Both can be true simultaneously, Ms. Winters. I'm offering you a consulting position on Project Aurora. 4 days a week, flexible hours to accommodate your studies and family obligations. The compensation would be substantial. Why? Because you just solved in 30 seconds what my team has been struggling with for months. No, I mean, why are you helping us? My father said you barely spoke to him before finding him in your garage." Dominic's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Perhaps I recognized something I'd forgotten. 2 days later, Percy arrived home to find a medical team installing equipment in his small apartment. A specialist from Sweden had been flown in to evaluate his father's condition. Meanwhile, Amelia's university received an anonymous donation, establishing a fellowship that coincidentally covered her remaining tuition. When confronted, Dominic merely said, "Consider it an investment in Project Aurora's success." Over the following weeks, Amelia reluctantly integrated into Thorne Industries. Her workspace became cluttered with star charts and theoretical models that confounded the corporate engineers. She refused Dominic's offer of a corner office. Preferring a glass-walled lab where she could see the sky, Dominic found himself stopping by her lab with increasing frequency, ostensibly to check on Aurora's progress. In reality, he was fascinated by how she worked, with a combination of mathematical precision and almost artistic intuition. She spoke about orbital mechanics with the same passion others reserved for love poetry. One evening, working late, Dominic brought coffee to her lab and found Amelia constructing a physical model of the satellite array. "The holographic simulations are more precise," he noted. "But less honest," she replied. "You can't feel the balance points in a hologram." She handed him a small satellite model. "Here, hold this in the right position." As he positioned the model according to her instructions, Dominic realized it was the first thing anyone had asked him to hold in years. His staff anticipated needs, removed obstacles, insulated him from mundane tasks. Yet here he was, standing beside this unusual young woman, holding a satellite model while she muttered calculations. "There," she said finally. "See how it all works together? Each piece supporting the others, creating something greater than themselves." Dominic looked at the completed model, then at Amelia's face, illuminated with quiet triumph. "Yes," he said softly. "I'm beginning to see that." Stars aligned. The board meeting had gone poorly. Dominic loosened his tie as the executives filed out, their disapproval hanging in the air like stale cologne. Project Aurora's timeline had been extended, at Amelia's insistence, to address environmental concerns about space debris. The delay meant postponing the quarterly projections that kept shareholders happy. "You're undermining yourself for this girl," said Victor Reinhardt, Thorne's longest-serving board member, lingering after the others had gone. "First the medical specialists for her grandfather, then the university donation, now delaying our flagship project because she's worried about space junk." "She's right about the debris field," Dominic replied evenly. "One collision could render the entire array useless." "That's not the point, Dom. The board's questioning your judgment. There are rumors about your relationship with her. The chauffeur's daughter suddenly influencing company decisions?" "People talk." Dominic's expression hardened. "Ms. Winters is a brilliant consultant who saved us from a catastrophic design flaw. Her personal background is irrelevant." "Is it?" Victor raised an eyebrow. "You've changed since she arrived." The Dominic Thorne I know doesn't delay launches for environmental impact studies or sponsor planetarium nights for underprivileged children. Perhaps the Dominic Thorne you know is evolving. That evening, Dominic canceled his dinner with potential investors and found himself driving to the university observatory. Amelia was holding a public viewing night, part of her outreach program to introduce astronomy to children from Seattle's struggling neighborhoods. He stood at the back, watching as she helped a young girl peer through the massive telescope. Amelia's face transformed when she spoke about celestial bodies, animated, almost radiant. The children listened to her with rapt attention as she described how stars were born, lived, and died. "They're actually seeing light that left those stars before they were born," she explained, "like getting a letter from the distant past." Later, as the families departed, Amelia spotted Dominic. "Mr. Thorne, what are you doing here?" "I wanted to see what compelled you to reschedule our supplier meeting." He nodded toward the telescope. "May I?" She seemed surprised but adjusted the instrument for him. "We're looking at the Pleiades cluster, the Seven Sisters." Dominic leaned forward, eye to the eyepiece. After a lifetime of spreadsheets and strategic plans, the sudden vastness above him was disorienting. Countless stars shimmered against the darkness. Beautiful, indifferent, eternal. "There are so many," he murmured. "That's nothing," Amelia said, her voice close to his ear. "The Hubble Deep Field shows galaxies containing billions of stars, and there are billions of galaxies. Makes quarterly reports seem rather insignificant, doesn't it?" He turned to find her smiling, not unkindly, but with understanding. For the first time, Dominic saw her clearly, not as Percy's daughter or a project consultant, but as herself, a woman with conviction and compassion in equal measure. "I missed the investor dinner," he said suddenly. "Important people with money to spend?" "Not particularly important, no." He surprised himself with the admission. "Not compared to this." They walked to the campus parking lot together, an unfamiliar comfort settling between them. "My grandfather asked about you," Amelia said. "He wants to thank you for the specialists." "That's unnecessary." "Nevertheless, he's invited you to dinner. Sunday. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and his famous garlic bread. He was a professor before his illness. I think you'd enjoy talking with him." Dominic hesitated. He couldn't remember the last time he'd been invited to a family dinner, a real one. Not a business function disguised as hospitality. "I have calls with Tokyo on Sunday," he said automatically. Amelia nodded, unsurprised. "Of course. Another time, perhaps." As she walked away, Dominic felt a strange hollowness in his chest, the sensation of a moment slipping through his fingers like starlight. He rescheduled Tokyo. Sunday dinner at the Winters' modest apartment became a revelation. Professor James Winters, despite his frailty, possessed a brilliant mind and wry humor. The small living room was crowded with books and strange contraptions, evidence of a life dedicated to discovery rather than acquisition. Over simple food and candlelight, they discussed theoretical physics, the philosophy of science, and the poetry of the cosmos. Percy, out of uniform and at ease in his own home, shared stories of Amelia's childhood experiments that had nearly burned down the garage. "She was always reaching for the stars," the professor said proudly, "even when we could barely afford the electricity." Dominic observed the easy affection between the three generations of Winters, so different from his own stilted family history. He'd grown up in cold affluence, with parents who measured success in portfolio, diversification rather than personal growth. "You have a beautiful home," he said sincerely. Amelia glanced around at the cramped apartment with its mismatched furniture and water stains on the ceiling. "It's not exactly your mansion on Queen Anne Hill." "No," Dominic agreed. "It's much more alive." Later, as Percy drove him home, Dominic stared at the night sky through the car window. "Your family is remarkable, Winters," Percy nodded. "We don't have much, but we have each other." "That," Dominic said quietly, "is considerably more than I have." Eclipse of fortune. The crisis erupted on a Tuesday morning. Dominic arrived at headquarters to find federal agents in the lobby and his executive team in panic. Nathaniel Green, Thorne Industries' chief competitor and Dominic's former partner, had filed a lawsuit claiming Project Aurora was based on stolen proprietary technology. "This is absurd," Dominic told his legal team. "Aurora's innovations are entirely original." "Green claims otherwise," his chief counsel replied. "And he's convinced the Commerce Department to halt all launches pending investigation." The situation deteriorated when internal documents were leaked to the press, documents suggesting Thorne had indeed incorporated elements of Green's satellite designs. The company's stock plummeted. Board members called for distance from the controversy and from Dominic himself. "It's a fabrication," Dominic insisted during an emergency board meeting. "Green is manipulating evidence to devalue us before a hostile takeover attempt." "Nevertheless," said Victor Reinhardt, "the board feels a temporary leadership change would reassure investors." That afternoon, as Dominic cleaned out his office, Vanessa rushed in. "Sir, Nathaniel Green is downstairs. He's asking for Amelia Winters." Dominic froze. "What does he want with her?" "He says she's the key to resolving everything." Downstairs, Green waited in the conference room, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with the practiced smile of someone accustomed to getting his way. "Dominic," he said pleasantly, "quite a predicament you're in. What do you want with Ms. Winters?" "Straight to business? Very well. Your brilliant young astronomer has developed original algorithms for satellite positioning that solve problems my team has struggled with for years. I'm offering her a position at Green Technologies, with substantial compensation and full research funding." Amelia, who had been summoned to the meeting, stood in the doorway. "And in exchange?" Green smiled. "You testify that you observed Mr. Thorne incorporating my company's designs into Project Aurora. My lawsuit disappears. You advance your career without being tainted by Thorne's imminent collapse, and everyone wins. Except Dominic," she noted. "Business is business, my dear. Nothing personal." Amelia studied Green, then turned to Dominic. Their eyes met in silent communication. "Mr. Green," she said finally, "your offer is very generous. However, there's one problem." She placed a flash drive on the conference table. "These are my original calculations for Aurora's orbital mechanics, time-stamped and verified. They prove the technology is legitimately ours. Furthermore, I've reconstructed how your team attempted to reverse engineer our prototypes based on public patent filings." Green's smile vanished. "You have no evidence?" "Actually, I do. While auditing our security protocols, I discovered multiple intrusion attempts from servers registered to Green Technologies. Rather than reporting them immediately, I created a honeypot system. You took the bait, Mr. Green. Everything your team accessed has been logged and verified by independent security experts. The room fell silent. Dominic stared at Amelia, realizing she had anticipated this attack and prepared a counter-strategy without telling him. "You're bluffing," Green said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. "Would you like me to call the federal agents in the lobby? I'm sure they'd be interested in seeing the evidence of corporate espionage I've compiled." Green gathered his coat. "This isn't over, Thorne." "Actually, I believe it is," Dominic replied. "Vanessa will show you out." When Green had gone, Dominic turned to Amelia. "You knew," she nodded. "I recognized intrusion patterns in our security logs 3 weeks ago. The attack signatures matched incidents reported by other companies targeted by Green." "Why didn't you tell me?" "You were already stressed about the board's concerns. I thought it better to have concrete evidence before alarming you." "You protected me," Dominic said, the realization dawning slowly. "I protected the project," Amelia corrected, but her eyes told a different story. That evening, after the federal agents had collected Amelia's evidence and the board had hastily reinstated Dominic, he found her in her lab packing her belongings. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Home. It's been a long day." "I meant the boxes." Amelia sighed. "The university offered me a research position. After today's events, it seems wiser to maintain some professional distance from Thorne Industries." "You're leaving." The words felt hollow in his mouth. "It's for the best, don't you think? The board already questions your judgment regarding me. Today's confrontation with Green will only intensify that scrutiny." Dominic stepped closer. "What if I don't care what they think?" "You should. This company is your life's work. And if I've discovered it's an incomplete life?" Amelia looked up, startled by his candor. "Green offered you everything I could," Dominic continued. "Funding, resources, prestige. Why did you stay?" She hesitated. "Because some things matter more than professional advancement." "What things?" "Truth, loyalty." Her voice softened. "Connection." The space between them seemed charged with unspoken possibilities. Dominic had negotiated billion-dollar deals with less trepidation than he felt now, reaching for her hand. "Stay," he said simply. "Not for Aurora. Not for Thorne Industries. For me." Celestial Navigation. 1 year later, the Thorne Foundation for Astronomical Education opened its doors in a renovated warehouse near Seattle's waterfront. The building's industrial exterior concealed state-of-the-art facilities, research laboratories, public telescopes, and interactive exhibits designed to make the cosmos accessible to children from all backgrounds. Dominic stood on the rooftop observatory platform, watching as final adjustments were made to the massive telescope, custom-built to Amelia's specifications. The city sparkled below, while above the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. "Nervous?" Percy asked, joining him at the railing. Their relationship had evolved over the months, formality giving way to genuine friendship. "Terrified," Dominic admitted. "What if nobody comes?" Percy chuckled. "The waiting list for memberships crashed our server twice. I'd say people are interested." The past year had transformed Thorne Industries. Project Aurora had launched successfully, bringing internet access to previously unserved regions. But more significantly, the company had pivoted toward sustainable technology and educational initiatives, with the foundation representing Dominic's personal commitment to Amelia's vision. The board had initially resisted, but public response proved overwhelmingly positive. Thorne became known for innovation with purpose rather than profit alone. Dominic's wealth had decreased on paper and increased immeasurably in meaningful impact. "Have you seen Amelia?" he asked. "She disappeared an hour ago." "Check the planetarium," Percy suggested. Pre-opening jitters. Dominic found her in the darkened dome, lying on her back in the center of the floor, watching as technicians calibrated the star projector. The artificial cosmos swirled above them, constellations shifting in mesmerizing patterns. He lay down beside her without speaking. After a moment, she reached for his hand. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop," she confessed. "For you to wake up and realize you've diverted millions into a glorified science museum." "Best investment I've ever made," Dominic replied. The returns are incalculable. Amelia turned toward him, her expression serious in the starlight. You've changed everything, for my family, for those kids who will come through these doors, for yourself. You changed me first, he said simply. They had moved cautiously toward each other over the months, both wary of the power dynamics and public perception. Their professional collaboration had gradually expanded to include quiet dinners, long conversations, and eventually a connection that defied conventional categories. It wasn't a fairy tale romance of instant passion, but something richer and more enduring, a partnership of minds that had slowly embraced their hearts as well. The grand opening ceremony began at sunset. Hundreds gathered in the Foundation's atrium, scientists, educators, potential donors, and most importantly to Amelia, families from throughout Seattle, including neighborhoods that rarely access such opportunities. Professor Winters, healthier after months of specialized treatment, sat in a place of honor. Percy, dressed in a suit rather than his chauffeur's uniform, greeted guests with dignified pride. The Foundation staff, many hired from underprivileged communities and trained for their positions, moved efficiently through final preparations. Dominic approached the podium reluctantly. Public speaking had always been a necessary evil in his corporate life, but tonight felt different, more personally significant than any shareholder meeting. Welcome, he began. Throughout human history, we've looked to the stars for guidance, inspiration, and perspective. They remind us of our small place in an infinite universe, yet also of our remarkable capacity to observe, understand, and wonder. He gestured toward the various exhibits. This foundation exists because one person showed me how to see the world and the stars differently. Tonight isn't about Thorn Industries or corporate philanthropy. It's about creating access to the cosmos for everyone, regardless of background or circumstance. His eyes found Amelia in the crowd. Some journeys begin in unexpected places. A garage late at night, a university observatory, a family dinner table. The path that brought us here wasn't planned or plotted like a satellite orbit. It was discovered step by step, guided by compassion, curiosity, and connection. As his speech concluded, the ceiling panels retracted, revealing the night sky above the glass dome. Gasps rippled through the crowd as stars became visible directly overhead. Later, as guests explored the exhibits, Dominic led Amelia to a secluded corner of the building. A single telescope stood there, smaller than the others but elegantly crafted. This one's not on the building plans, he said. Amelia examined it curiously. Handmade, beautiful workmanship. It belonged to my grandfather, the one person in my family who saw beyond wealth and status. He taught me to look at the stars when I was very young, before business consumed my father's attention. I'd forgotten until you reminded me. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. This telescope has been in storage for decades. I had it restored, but there's something missing. Inside the box lay a small golden plate, engraved with 2 sets of coordinates, celestial positions of stars. What are these? Amelia asked. The first is the star visible in the sky the night we met, when I found Percy in the garage. The second is from tonight. He paused. Every journey needs navigation points. As understanding dawned in her eyes, Dominic continued, I'd like to place this on the telescope, if you'll help me chart whatever comes next. Amelia took the plate, running her fingers over the engraved coordinates. You know astronomers are notoriously stubborn about their observations. Once we commit to a celestial object, we tend to stay focused. I'm counting on that, Dominic replied softly. As they attached the plate to the telescope, their fingers intertwined naturally. Outside, Seattle continued its bustling pace. Inside, surrounded by maps of distant galaxies and models of cosmic phenomena, 2 people who had begun their journey with midnight sandwiches and leftover canapes found themselves exactly where they were meant to be, beneath the same stars that had guided humanity's deepest connections for millennia. Professor Winters, watching from across the room with Percy at his side, smiled knowingly. Did I ever tell you, he said to his son, that the gravity between stars is the most fundamental force in the universe? Everything else is just details. Percy nodded, observing his daughter and Dominic as they stood close together, their silhouettes framed against the starlit dome. Some things, he agreed, are simply written in the stars,